Welcome to the Determined People podcast, offering encouragement, strength, and hope into a world that is in desperate need of it. You know, there is no word in the English language or any other language to describe a parent who's lost a child. If you're a kid and your parents get killed, you're an orphan. If you're a wife and your husband dies, you're a widow. And I think the reason that there's no word that can actually describe that is because it's too painful. It's unthinkable. But our guest today, she is familiar with that indescribable pain. Melissa Fleming's son, Brock, he was diagnosed with Diffuse Intrinsic Pontine Glioma, or we'll call it DIPG, just prior to his 7th birthday. DIPG is a tumor on the brainstem, and it's fatal 100% of the time. Brock died in December of 2017 after fighting for 7 months. Melissa's here to share her story of this painful time in her and her family's life, how they dealt with the loss of a child. Then we're going to learn how she's turned her pain into purpose. She's honoring Brock's wish to, and I quote, kick cancer in the nuts. Going to find a cure for DIPG. So welcome to the show, Melissa. Thank you for coming on.
I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. As a parent, we want to talk about our child and get the story out, so thank you for allowing that today.
Absolutely. I love that, kick cancer in the nuts.
So that came about because of Brock.
Right.
Whenever he was battling, he literally said he wanted to kick cancer in the nuts. He was mad, but then he started laughing. So he knew what he meant, and he meant it.
Even as an elementary school child, he'll know how painful
exactly,
that is, right?
Yes, and he just thought he was so funny. So we definitely use that slogan when appropriate because that's what he wanted, and that's our determination.
Well, I think it's always appropriate.
Yes.
Tell us about Brock.
Cutest little guy, and he knew it. Might get a little choked up here. He was just a funny kid. He liked to laugh. He liked to make jokes. I always say he didn't walk into a room. He hopped, he bounced, he skipped, just happy, not hyper, happy. Mm-hmm. He was quite funny. He liked to dance, so I liked that because I liked to dance. He would almost squat to stick out his booty and shake it, and then he'd get his arms going like a chicken. It was the funniest thing ever, and he would just laugh. So, he loved to swim. Mm-hmm. He was played a little bit of soccer, but we had a pool in our backyard, so we were always swimming in that. Loved Legos. During his battle, we would do a Lego-thon. I mean, he and I would sit there on the floor for hours. He would hand me the pieces. I'd put it together. Nobody else was allowed to help him. Mm-hmm. And so that's now in our China cabinet. The China cabinet's gone. His Legos are there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Great memory. Yeah.
Good kid.
How many times did you ever step on a lone Lego laying on the floor in the middle of the night?
You know what? Never. That was a good thing because we would build the things and put it away. So fortunately, never.
That is painful.
He didn't want to lose the pieces, I think.
So how did you discover the tumor? I mean, Brock was a happy, dance. I saw a little video of him dancing, and his sister told him to stick his booty in the air.
Oh, yeah.
She goes, no, oh, no.
That was the funniest thing. Oh, no. She's trying to direct him on the video. Oh, it was quite funny. That summed the two of them up quite well. So the thing about this type of tumor is that where it's located is at the brainstem, which is considered valuable real estate. So it controls your eating, your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure. So all of your mobility, your walking, talking, all of it. And this tumor is very aggressive. And so you don't really have symptoms until it's pushing in the wrong area. So he's literally fine one day. The night before his fall, he looked at the TV and he said that it was blurry. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking we need to go to the eye doctor. I didn't have the best vision. My husband doesn't. So that's normal, and didn't give it much thought. But the next day he was walking the dog with my husband and his sister Jenna, and he tripped and fell. And when he fell, he landed on his knuckles, which isn't a normal way to brace yourself. And that's just the tumor miswiring the brain. Sure. And so he ended up with a huge goose egg and concussion. So we took him to the ER, and they immediately did a CAT scan because they're wanting to see if there's any brain bleeding. Sure. And good news, great news. And we had gone to one in North Austin, and great news. There's no hemorrhaging, and he's just got a severe concussion. Go see the pediatrician the next day. He also didn't know who we were. He had amnesia, but that was from the fall, not the tumor. Mm-hmm. But by the next morning, he knew where we were again. Not his sister, but he knew mommy and daddy. And but he had partial facial paralysis. So when it's
that showed up the next morning.
This is all the tumor. It's now affecting the nerves, and so the facial nerves. And so when he would smile, it'd be crooked. and they don't get that back. And it doesn't always happen, but his was so aggressive it did. And then he started walking on his tippy toes, again, the miswiring. So by the time we go to the pediatrician that morning, she does some tests, and she's like, go to Dell Children's and have them do an MRI. Then when we go to the MRI, they're kind of like, or get the ER, they're kind of like, silly little pediatrician almost. And then I said, Brock, smile. And as soon as they smile, they're like, and we're going to get an MRI.
Yeah.
So this whole time I'm thinking, this is a concussion. How are we going to fix this? I don't want this to be permanent damage. No way would I ever think brain cancer. My husband's a retired police officer, so he's got more of a medical background just from the years on calls and what to look for in people. So he knows that this is more serious. And so it was 12:30 in the morning that Brock's asleep. They take James and I in the other room and pull up on a scan and say there's a tumor. So even at that point, we're thinking, okay, 2016. Okay, we're going to give chemo. We're going to give medicine. We can do this. We're united as a family. And then it was the next day, and we were meeting with the oncologist that she said that they were able to do a biopsy to determine which type of brain tumor. And I was actually talking to Dr. Lee at the time, and I said, well, what are the outcomes? He's like, there's three. It's either not cancerous, which I knew wasn't going to be the case, or it is cancerous and there's a cure, or there's no cure. So I immediately started telling everybody, pray for the one with a cure, because I knew it was cancerous. So
How did you know?
this is too severe. Like, I'm not naive. You're not going to have these kind of symptoms. I mean, brain cancer is pretty bad. And so I haven't known of it not being aggressive. I didn't realize kids got brain cancer. I had no idea. I've never seen a kid with brain cancer. So it was just all new, but you just know, like, I don't know, you just kind of know.
That had to throw you and your family into shock.
Yes. I went into mommy mode, and all I wanted to do was manage Brock. James was in a fog. I mean, neither of us expected this. So family is driving up. They're from Houston. Of course, we have friends here. I basically said, everyone take Jenna. James and I need to be with Brock. I'll take Jenna. Well, this was all happening on a Friday, and they couldn't do the biopsy till Monday. And so we said, because they wanted to wait till Monday just because of skeleton crew, and they wanted to make sure the good staff was there in case something happened. So I was like, well, we're not staying in the hospital. I hate the hospital. And so we went home over the weekend. So what was nice about that is he got to play on the playground with his friends Sunday before the biopsy. Because after the biopsy, between the tumor's aggressiveness, a concussion, and now brain surgery, he no longer had mobility. He couldn't walk. He couldn't move his arms, his legs. It was growing so fast.
This was less than a week.
No, this was like 3 days. This is all happening over 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and so now you're trying to manage the emotions of a 6-year-old that doesn't understand why he can't move his arm and is scared. And then I don't even know what's going on. And then and it's a lot to process.
Absolutely. So speaking of being in shock, I mean, how did you and your husband, how did you all keep it together? Because you still had the older daughter, Jenna. You still had to do normal family stuff. How did you all keep it together?
Fortunately, James and I were very united. Divorce rate for parents of childhood cancer is 80%.
80%, yeah.
Because it can really tear you apart. But I really focused on the caregiving. He focused on the research and what's the next treatment. And then all the family surrounded Jenna. And so, the hardest part, I think, for Jenna was that I've raised our 2 kids that they're treated the same. I mean, and to extreme cases, each morning we rotated who got to pick the TV show before school. We rotated each day who got dropped off at school first when they were going to 2 different schools. And so it kept the fights out.
You're too good.
Yeah, I was like, and so Jenna all of a sudden was like, well, why are you giving Brock all the attention? And so I told her, you get everybody. You get like a lot more people than Brock. So so we just had to quickly adjust. And the wonderful thing is we had so many family and friends surrounding us, and they were very conscious of it. So we had one person who literally collected 40 boy toys and 40 girl toys. And every morning after radiation, Jenna and Brock both got a present because the siblings are often neglected in this. And so it was little things like that that were so big and so helpful to us that allowed us. And then as soon as Brock finished radiation, I was all about what's the next fun thing we can do? What's the next goal? Because a lot of times kids in this situation don't walk again. But Brock's tumor shrank, and the physical therapist said it's his determination that got him walking again.
Wow. Because I remember he was able to regain his motor skills.
He did.
For a while.
Yes, so it took about 4 weeks. He was able to walk using a walker, and then 2 weeks later, no more walker. And then he was good for about 4, maybe 5 months, and then the tumor started progressing, and then it was 6 weeks.
Okay. Wow. So Jenna was questioning as well. How old was she at the time?
She was 9.
Okay. Still very young. Did she have any resentment toward her brother?
No, she didn't have resentment because she got everybody. But there was a little bit of jealousy. I remember this one time, James, Jenna, Brock, and I went to the Austin Zoo. And, he's in a wheelchair at the time. And they didn't have strollers for her. Now she's 9. She doesn't need a stroller. She doesn't need a cart. And so she got upset. Like, he gets the stroller and I don't. And so I just said, James, stay with Brock. And I walked her down and around the corner. And I said, Jenna, you and she hadn't been playing with him. She hadn't really been talking to him. And so I said, Jenna, you're not being very nice. I will tell you right now, Brock would gladly give you his wheelchair and if he could walk again. And I said, and you got to start being nicer. And so she said, well, I'm going to play with him when he's better. And so I had to tell her, like, I don't know how much better he's going to be. And so that's when it switched for her. And then she started doing everything with him. And then fortunately he got better. But that was really the only time that we had a moment. And then from then on, she was like, okay.
Yeah.
And she got to have fun. We had fun. We did have fun. I mean, it was different fun for her and Brock because they don't understand the severity. James and I are trying to get through it and create memories where Jenna and Brock are kids.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful that you and James, got closer because,
Yes.
like I said, when I was doing research for this show, like 80% of parents split.
And then being in law enforcement, it's about 80% there too. So we got like 2 whammies. I'm like, well, we can get through this. I think we're pretty solid.
But he was still active as a police officer
Yes.
then, which takes total focus. How was he able to get through that? I mean, because you can't let your guard down when you're a police officer. How was he able to do that?
So we were blessed in a lot of different ways during Brock's battle. And James never called in sick. Like literally, I think in the 15 years at that point with the department, he called in twice, and it was because I was sick. So he had tons of hours. And the chief Acevedo was the police chief at the time, and they worked it out where between FMLA and between his sick time, he didn't work for 10 months. He was able to stay home.
Oh wow!
And then and then it was like a few months after Brock passed before he went back. So that way he knew mentally he could. Because a lot of other officers do have kids battling cancer, and it's really, really tough, really, really tough. I think the hardest for him was when he'd go on calls and parents would be frustrated with their kids and complaining about them, because that's when he's saying, like, I would take this all day long. You don't know how lucky you are. But of course he can't say that. So that was the hardest when he saw maybe not as good of parents. And I think that was the hardest for him. But he liked being around the guys and the girls and the camaraderie within a department that, that's their family.
Sure, you bet. All of us, I have 2 boys. They're now adults, but during the course of their lifetime, I had to watch them suffer. I mean, it could be something as like getting dumped by a girl or something like that. But you
Yes.
got to let them suffer
Work through
that
it.
because otherwise they'll never build resilience if you baby them too much. But you had a different kind of suffering. It was a nightmare to watch your precious child suffer with something that you knew the end result was not going to come out good. What is that like? Describe that if you can. What is it like to watch your child suffer?
Every night I would go in the closet and cry as I get choked up when everyone's asleep, because I wasn't going to show it for my kids.
Sure.
So that was a safe time. So James was very, like, he was willing to accept what was happening, and he was trying the best he could to give Brock as much time and us as a family. And if there was something, by golly, he was going to find it. He literally called the 50 top children's hospitals, demanded to speak to the top oncologists and the top neuro-oncologists, and neurosurgeons, top neurosurgeon, top kids oncologists. So that was kind of how he was dealing with it. With me was more, I knew what was happening, but I had to believe that he was going to be the one that had more time. And I could not talk about any other option. So I would go to James saying, what have you found out? What can we do? And I would plan the trips and us traveling so I could be distracted and we could play. It wasn't until the day he died that I even talked to the doctors about it. Because I realized at that point there was no treatment. We were trying something on compassionate use and trying a drug at home. I mean, you got to understand, I became an oncologist nurse overnight. He was on so many medications when he was diagnosed and so down, and he didn't want to be in the hospital, that I was like, you have got to show me what to do and I will do it. I can't keep him here or he's not going to get better. And so there's a lot of pressure from that aspect too. So I just had to look for the other things. But the day he died, he actually was at the hospital for a checkup. Like, no one was expecting it, and that's what can happen with this. And so at that point, I said, how could this end up? And so she said he can continue to deteriorate over the next, month or two as he's losing weight and losing, just digressing, and then, or it can be really quick. And I said, like an aneurysm. She said, yeah, it's not an aneurysm, but yes, because it just pushes in the wrong space. And so it was that night. Pushed in the wrong place. Wow. Yeah. So I think I was kind of needed to be there and hear that. And I remember when she told me, my immediate head reaction, I didn't verbalize it, was, I hope it's quick. Because who wants your child to do that? So then I was like, well, man, why was that my ask? I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know you were going to grant it.
I meant like quick, a few months, right?
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I should have said in a month, make it fast. You got to joke about this stuff, right? You have to be able to joke about it.
You got to try. But I want to ask you a very sensitive question. I mean this in the most general way. What's it like when your child dies?
Well, for me personally, so what happened was he was having these seizures, and they weren't the standard, they were brain strokes. And so he would get real frigid, and then he would relax, and they were coming on more. And so all of a sudden he was having a spell like that. He wasn't coming out of it, and had to give him a lot of morphine to try to calm him. And he came out of it. And so we went to sleep, and the doctor was going to call in an hour to check on us. So James was downstairs on the couch with Jenna sleeping, and I was upstairs with Brock. And it's still hard for me to watch my kids sleep at night because I focus on their breathing. And as a parent, you're watching every single breath. You're counting how long in between. Is it getting better or worse? It's kind of crazy. And so I had to turn away because I was not doing good mentally, and he's kind of asleep, but I couldn't listen. And so he stopped breathing, but I didn't know. I think that was God's way to help kind of protect me. So James came up because the doctor called him. So he comes up to check on us and to answer questions for the doctor about how Brock was doing. And he opened the door, and I just looked at him, and I said, tell me how he is. I couldn't look. And that's when he said he's gone. And I just fell out of the bed, gagging, trying to get to the toilet, thinking that I'm going to throw up. I will tell you, a physical part of me died in that moment. So, everyone is different, but that was me. And so then, of course, I went back, and now you're just like, oh my gosh, how do I tell a sister? So, I had to wake her up and tell her that Brock's in heaven, and she's just kind of like, what? And so a blessing, because there are blessings, trust me. I didn't realize at the time, but Jenna had watched a movie where God saved the kid and brought him back. And so Jenna demanded that we lay there for 2 hours with Brock. And she just said, in case God brings him back. And I was like, okay, we set a timer on my phone. I was trying to let her know God's not going to bring him back. But the reason it was such a blessing is because it's the last time I got to lay with him and hold him. And us four as a family with nobody else were with him for 2 more hours. So She'll never know, but that was amazing. I'm so glad she did that. And then when they came and brought him and then took him away, they put him in a cover, which was interesting in itself. And so she looked at me and said, well, I guess God can't bring him back now. And I said, no, sweetie, he can't, So.
Yeah, can't get him out of that cover. God's
No,
limited.
not getting out of the cover.
He's
You're right.
limited there.
Yeah.
Were you ever angry with God?
Never. And I was really afraid that Jen was. And this is where I sometimes struggle because, I know people find comfort when they say, like, God has a plan. And my initial reaction is, like, my God doesn't plan for my kid to get brain cancer and die. No. And so, it can isolate people from God, and people don't mean to, and it's how they're dealing with it. But I will tell everybody I am sane because he was there. There were times where I could feel peace, and I know Brock's in heaven, and I'm going to do my darndest to get there and not mess it up. I got to get to heaven too one day, in my due time. I'm not saying tomorrow. I'm just saying when it's my time, I want to make sure.
What you ask for, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know that now. Careful. In the future, way off, please. But I know he's in a happy place, and he finds ways to let us know he's around.
I want to ask you about that. Do you feel his presence?
So I've been upset because he doesn't come to me in dreams, and a lot of parents get to see their child in their dreams. Brock came one time, and it was just he was there, and I woke up crying. Like, I was literally crying because I was sad, and so I feel like because he won't come back in my dreams. But I believe one of the ways he communicates with me is he'll send me messages on my phone, and so a cool experience was I had my cell phone on my desk and I was at work, and I just happened to look at my cell phone. And so it's a good 6 inches from me. I mean, I'm not touching it. And just in that moment, this picture pops up on my phone, and I looked down on it, and it was a Minecraft, which kids know, and it was a mom cat and a baby cat. And that was our thing. He loved it when it was the mom with the kitten, the mom with the baby. On his headstone, it's a killer whale, mommy and baby, because that was our thing. And so it's like, how does that happen, right? So wow. That's ways that I feel like he's coming to me.
Chills on that one.
It was
wow.
really cool.
Yes.
I got a message last week. I picked up my phone, and it was a dolphin. And I used to ask Jenna, were you playing with my phone? Like, why would this app be open? She'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I quit asking. So every once in a while I get like that. And then I know he comes and sees Blair. He's influenced her dancing. She started the dancing I was describing, she just started doing it. And I was like, where'd you learn that? Because it was just an eerie image almost. And
he danced.
She's like, she said, Brock showed me.
Wow.
I was like, okay. And this is at 2. So, yeah.
Again.
It's
so
pretty cool.
Blair is your youngest daughter, who was born after Brock had
She was
passed
born
away.
a year after he passed away. Yes. So that was another blessing because I was 40 at the time. And Jenna was pretty desperate for us to have another kid because she didn't want to be the only child. James and I had always talked about 3, just with his profession. And when Brock was diagnosed, I said, I want 3 kids, not 1. And so we just thought we had more time with Brock. But she definitely brings a lot of joy to us and other people.
So this is important because people, when they know someone whose child has cancer or has passed away, they don't know what to say.
Right.
And what do you need people to say to you when they meet you? Or what should people say to someone in that situation?
I just think if it's somebody you know and you knew that kid, talk about the kid. I think a lot of times people are afraid if they bring up the child that they're going to make you sad. I'm going to be sad whether you bring up my son's name or not, right? It's just going to be my moment. But you mentioning my child brings me joy because you care about my kid. You're keeping my child's memory alive. If it's too hard for a parent, they'll tell you I need a moment or that they don't want to. But honestly, I haven't come across a mom that didn't want to talk about her child. I don't know a dad who wouldn't want to talk about his child.
Absolutely.
And so don't be afraid to just bring up stories. So, in our household, I'll talk about, Jenna thinks this, Blair thinks this. I'm like, well, I think Brock would think this way. Or, Blair talks about Brock. Jenna's, it's hit or miss if she wants to because it's hard for her still. But he's talked about every day. So if someone else is talking about it, that's wonderful. I think people, they want to help you. They want to fix it, and you can't. So just be there. Just be beside them. You don't even have to talk. Just sit with them, and just kind of follow their direction. If they want to talk about it, do. If they want to talk about the weather, talk about the weather. Let them lead it. But you're not going to upset them. They've been through the worst. Like, there's nothing you can say that's really going to there are some things that aren't, very nice if you compare, I understand how you feel. My dog died. That's a tough one. And I know that their dog can be their child, but it's a little tougher.
Yeah, but if you haven't lost a child, you don't know how they feel.
Yes, yes.
Empathy is shared experience, and that's what we're talking about here. And one of my friends. I mean, I know so many people who've lost children, and from accidental drug overdoses to intentional drug overdoses to suicide, murder, now cancer. And the universal one is, don't tell me you know how I feel unless you have lost a child, because you can't.
Yes.
You can't empathize. Yes. And I keep having these conversations with God. I go, I don't want to ever be able to empathize. And I'm serious about that. I don't.
But also know if you make a comment like that, it's not the end of the world. I mean, trust me, they're just fine.
It's the heart. It's the intention. Right?
Yeah, yes. And they'd much rather you say something than walk the other way or be scared to talk to them. Right. And they've known far worse pain. There's nothing you can say that's really gonna set them off. It's not. It's not. And if they're crying, it's not because of something you said. It's just because the emotions they're processing. And sometimes it can be a good cry.
So Christmas was right after you lost Brock.
Yes.
How was that first Christmas without him?
Yeah, it was pretty rough because he passed away December 10th. And literally we were at the doctor pepping him up with some fluids, and my dad and stepmom lived in Florida, and they were going home to do a few things and coming back. And so they had, they turned around. But it's just, you just try to get through the motions and get through it. Everyone was processing it. My family's a solid family. My mom and brothers live in Houston. My dad lives in Florida. But we would always go to my mom's for Christmas. So, she was kind of like, what are you going to do? And I was like, get me out of here. I don't like to be in my house for holidays like that. Christmas, Thanksgiving. So going to my mom's was a comfort, but still really hard. And it's, things kind of change. Like my mom, they always want to go to Sunday service for Christmas, but I don't like to go. And it's hard to describe, but people are at such a different headspace on Christmas Eve than I am. That it takes a lot of energy to be around a lot of people that are celebrating, and you're celebrating, but you've got heartache. So fortunately, like, my family respects that. We all go to dinner, and then they'll take Jenna to church, and I go back to the house, and it's okay. So we just kind of learn to do it that way, and just respect everyone's boundaries and what they want.
Absolutely.
But it really starts for me in October. October is when the progression happened, right before Halloween. Okay. So Halloween to December 10th is pretty rough because it's just all of those memories that you start processing.
How do you all honor his memory, like on his birthday or things? I mean, what do y'all do to I mean, I know you keep him alive.
Yes.
He's always alive in your heart, but what do y'all do? Do you have any celebrations you do, or like on December 10th, do you go visit his gravesite, or how do y'all do that?
Every family is different, and there is no right or wrong.
Right.
For me, I prefer to celebrate his birth, not his death. And so for his birthday, we do.
I didn't mean celebrate. I mean, like,
No. I mean,
yes.
yeah. I mean, but no, that's more my words. But blessed by Brock is what we call it, where we have a little card, we put it online, and people can print it, and we ask them to do an act of kindness for somebody else and give them that card.
Oh, nice.
And so that way you're blessing them as Brock would want, and really to create joy for other people, because he liked to have fun and give presents, and it was a very thoughtful kid. For his death day, a lot of people do balloons. They do a lot of things. I hide. I really do. I try. James likes to go and visit cemetery. I don't. But I'll go on his birthday. I'll go on his death day. And that's really the only times that I go, because that's one thing that makes me mad.
Sure.
So that's the only time I'm mad.
Okay.
Because he's in the ground and he shouldn't be. Right. But for many people, it's solace and comfort. So we just kind of do things, James and I together. You know, Jen will go to school, Blair will go to school. It's just a time for James and I to be low key on his death day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understandable. You're involved in a lot of really cool things.
Yes.
And we're going to switch gears into that, unless there's anything else that we haven't covered about Brock and his life and his memories and his illness and everything. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered?
No, I think what you've done is good, and really talking about how to keep him alive is now how we've turned it and how we've kept moving forward. So I'm sure that'll lead into your questions.
Two-pronged approach here. One is you have put together a retreat for other DIPG.
Yes.
Is it just moms or is it both parents?
Moms.
Okay.
So really
what's wrong with the men?
I know. Men don't really like to get together with other men. We keep trying and all of them are like, they like to text each other.
It's
call
real
each
uncomfortable,
other.
right?
Yes. And so what happened was when Brock was battling, there was two other kids, Nathan and Jade, that battled in Texas. One was in College Station, Jade, and Nathan was in Dallas, and they were both DPS. Their dads were DPS troopers.
Both were.
Mm-hmm. And so having 3 law enforcement, you kind of become friends. Mm-hmm. And Jade only battled 5 days. Hers is the second most aggressive case. She was 4 years old, battled 5 days. And so, so the mom is Vicky, and she's my partner in crime. And so she came up with the idea, I think that we should do a Texas Moms Retreat. Let's get some Texas moms together so we can just become friends and get to know each other. And so we started doing it twice a year. Mm-hmm. We've done it for 3 years now. We just pick different locations. There's a group of about 6 to 8 of us that are pretty solid every time. And then other moms, it just depends. We'll usually have 10 to 15, just depending. But it's really just a way for us to just be. We talk about whatever we want. It can be about our child who battled. It might be about whatever's going on with the siblings, our spouses, our work, saying the things that other people don't want to hear, saying the things that people might misconstrue, right? So like, me saying going to heaven, like all of them would know what I meant, where I need to clarify for you that I'm not suicidal, right? So it's more those kind of conversations that we can have and no one's scared.
Sure.
So what's happened though is that other moms in other states kept saying, can we come? We're like, you're not Texas, kind of joking with them.
Well, too many people are moving here already.
Right. No, you're not allowed. Well, there's this symposium with the Care Starts Now every 2 years. Researchers gather and report their research. And we just had one in December. And there were a lot of families in the fight and families from across the U.S. coming. And, they must have been on a mission. There's 5 of us Texas chapters and ladies, and they were hitting us all up. You need to let us. And I left realizing that it was selfish of me. I hadn't realized that a lot of these moms didn't have anyone. Oh. And I need these Texas moms. Mm-hmm. And so I was calling Vicki on the way back because she kept telling us we need to do another one. I'd be like, no. So I called her and I was like, okay, we need to do it. And she's like, I told you so. So we're having our very first one, and it just happens to be in Austin. By process of elimination, this ended up being the best place, which makes it really easy for me. And so there's about 25 women, I think is our total count right now, that are coming. And all over the U.S. I think out of the 25, there's probably 6 of us that are Texas, but the moms want to come. And it's interesting because, being a mom, they're trying to take care of everybody else. So we keep reinforcing, this is just about you, and we don't have to do a lot of stuff. We're just going to sit around. So I think it's going to be really good, really healing. What I really hope is that now some of these moms are going to have friends, and maybe they'll go back and do it in their state.
Couldn't imagine going through something without friends, without people to surround you and be with you. And like you say, just come and just sit with you. Don't have to say anything. Just come sit with you, right? The presence alone is enough.
But what's kind of sad to me is it's not even, we've created this DIPG group, but there's so many other parents. I met a mom whose daughter was hit by a car. How does she form a group of other moms where their kids were hit by a car? It's hard for me. I want to create these groups for everybody in all fashions, right? Because it's so helpful. It really is.
And there's that common thread of the loss of a child is the loss of a child. It's a pain that only you know. So, But I think it's really cool that is growing. And that
Yes.
you came up with the idea and gave it to Vicky to let's do another one. I'm kidding.
Right. Yeah, I probably need to give Vicky more credit. She's like, "Come on, Melissa, let's do it." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I take over. Poor Vicky.
But that's coming up. But then you're a busy girl. You've now become a major fundraiser for
Yes.
to kick DIPG in the nuts.
Yes.
So you've got one coming up here next month. We're recording right now. Today is April the 8th, Friday, April the 8th. And
we actually have 3 coming up.
3. So let's talk about those 3. What are you doing, and then talk about your success, because you've raised a lot of money in the last 4 years.
Yeah, and so really what happened was during Brock's battle, we had amazing friends. So Brock chose the name Team Brock. He liked Team Brock, or, they say, "Do you want Brock Strong?" No, he wanted Team Brock. And then he wanted a Batman logo. So it's a Batman theme, and he wanted blue and yellow. And so they did monthly events for Team Brock, and they would create it for a family to come out.
Who was they?
So family and friends formed a Team Brock committee.
Oh, okay.
Some of them were strangers. I hadn't met them, or acquaintances. Like, we knew each other, but we weren't really true friends, but they cared. And so they started doing monthly events for our family to come, others to see Brock, and for families to create memories. So when Brock passed away, they said, "Do you want to do a fundraiser?" And so they're really kind of the ones that nudged me. And during the battle, they found The Cure Starts Now. So The Cure Starts Now is who we raise money for. They were formed by another DIPG family originally. There's 40 chapters all across the U.S., and we have a chapter in Australia and a chapter in Canada. And it's all parents like us, or there's even a chapter that's a sibling. One is actually a friend that does it, but they're all volunteers having these events, all to fund research. So we fund pediatric brain cancer research because doctors believe that if you can find a cure for the most aggressive, you're going to cure many cancers. Plus, this tumor has a lot of mutations that are in other cancers. So like right now, there's a trial that's for neuroblastoma and DIPG. There was a DIPG trial that was a breast cancer metastatic drug that they were trying on DIPG. So that's why they kind of figured this is the mecca. Sure. And so that's when we said, well, let's raise some money for The Cure Starts Now, and had our first golf tournament. So we're now on our 6th. It's a lot of fun. We usually last year we had 34 teams, so we get a good showing, a lot of camaraderie. It's very uplifting for me because these people who come know about it, care about it, and show up, which is amazing. We're doing our very first tea party tomorrow at a historic Kumpel house in Pflugerville. So it's in. There's 3 other families that have now joined my chapter, and one of them was Alexis, who battled in Georgetown. She diagnosed on her mom's birthday and battled exactly a year, and so. Yeah, pretty hard, right?
Wow.
I know. And so she wanted to do a princess tea party. Okay. So it's tomorrow. And then we have another group that want to do like relay races for us, the Mac Phillips Tennis Academy. So we got 2 new events coming right on both sides of the golf tournament. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And they're different outreaches, and it's just to involve kids how we can and raise money. But The Cure Starts Now also has a warrior program. So it's not just research. That is absolutely the primary focus. But they have a dedicated support person, Heidi, and her daughter's battling. But her daughter is now on month 37 of battling. She's been able to do a few trials and keep going. And so, it's providing those services to help parents kind of navigate this, because we didn't have that in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've raised a tremendous amount of money. So about 1.3 million, is that right?
Almost at 1.4. We might be there right now.
Almost at 1.4. And how much of that actually gets to the recipient, The Cure Starts Now?
All of it. So that money raised that I said 1.4 is all to The Cure Starts Now. They will say, based on the analysis, 97% is funding research. Okay. It really is. And so as a chapter, I'm keeping expenses very, very low. And so I'm making sure it's a small percentage to what I'm costing versus what I'm raising. And so we're very conscious of that, because, it's our free time. If it's not going to fund research, then why am I doing this, right? So 97% funds research, or the Warrior program that goes to those things.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's fantastic work.
Yes.
Taking your pain and giving it purpose.
Yes.
Which is what, I don't even know how to put it into words, but it reminds me of the. I don't know a lot of scripture, but I know Romans 8:28, that God will take anything bad and turn it to good for those who love Him, and it's not going to replace your child, but the research might save a child down the road.
It will. It's going to.
Yes.
I will tell you, I have been able to see over the past 5 years progress being made. We don't have a cure yet, but my child had 7 months. And for Addison to now be 3 years out, that's a win, because we just got to get the next thing. We got to figure it out. And so, those are the things that give you hope, that keep you knowing that what you're doing is right.
Do you know what her quality of life was like during that 37 months?
Oh, she's doing great. You
Really?
wouldn't even know.
Really? Wow.
So the problem some of the changes, when Brock was diagnosed, you couldn't start a trial till progression. And Brock had 6 weeks. And so nothing's going to work. And so now kids can start trials right after radiation. That's a game changer. This disease, this cancer is so aggressive, you have to keep kicking it. If you take a break for a month, it can be enough. This tumor is heterogeneous, which means that it's different throughout. Only 7% of this tumor is the same. It's different. So radiation is the only standard treatment for this, and so it stops it initially. Another mutation takes over. So they've done biopsies of kids. Like Brock had a biopsy. I didn't donate his tumor. There was no way. James knew not to have that conversation with me. I couldn't have had it, so I'm so grateful for people who do. But they will do analysis in its different mutations. And so they're trying to figure out, like, is it because, they're doing a biopsy in certain places, not everywhere. But now that they can do biopsies and the donated tumors, it's moving a lot quicker.
That is rapid. Well, anything else that you want to share about Brock, your family, or anything that you're working on? You have a fun run in the fall too, right?
We do. That's always in October. So you can go to Team Brock on Facebook. You'll see his adorable little face. If you go to The Cure Starts Now, you'll be able to see like how we're funding research. It's been $18 million The Cure Starts Now has been able to fund. You get to see every single grant, what hospital it went to, the summary of it, but then you can actually go and read the grant if you want to. And then you can learn about all the chapters and the kids, and you'll see Austin Round Rock chapter. But I'm just one of many families in the fight. I think what people need to realize is that childhood cancer is severely underfunded. 96% of cancer research funded by the government goes to adults, less than 4% to kids, and brain cancer is less than 1%. To put it in perspective, 2 years ago, because I haven't looked what they did last year, 2 years ago, NIH gave one grant of $459,000 to DIPG. Brain cancer is the number one cause of deaths in our cancer-related deaths in our kids. DIPG has no cure, the most aggressive, and they gave it $459,000.
Which is nothing.
And this is the same tumor that Neil Armstrong's daughter had. Has anyone's watched Man on the Moon and Muffy, who passed away? They didn't say the words, but it was DIPG that she had. She got the exact same treatment that my son had. Nothing has changed. Wow. And so that's why I tell everyone, when you go through something like this, like, we had to decide, were we going to go under? Not an option. We got Jenna, and that's not fair to her. And so are we going to exist and get through the motions, or are we going to live? And we wanted to live. And I want, our kids don't understand this any more than us. The Team Brock is about creating awareness. Kids get cancer, you got to join our efforts. We are about funding research because that's the ultimate goal, but it's also about the kids. This tea party tomorrow, Jenna is a freshman in high school. There's probably 10 of her friends coming out that are all going to be volunteering.
Oh, great.
Because they're not wanting a princess tea party, but they can't wait. Because, these kids need to see when something really bad happens, you choose how to react. Get back up if you don't like it, change it. And I want to give them some tools for them to feel like they are empowered, that they are helping to change. And if it's not for us, they're going to see us doing it and go do it in some other facet themselves. But I don't want, I know what Brock went through is going to impact them for the rest of their life. And I've got to make sure that there's some good out of that for them too. And so that's what I'm really trying, I'm trying to do a lot. And I'm trying to make people listen and hear. But I will tell you at the end of the day, the only thing I care about are the kids. I really do, whether it's the kids battling, whether it's Brock's friends, whether it's just kids suffering. That's what I care about, and I'm going to do my part to try to make it better, whatever way that is.
You're definitely doing your part. You have my great admiration and respect. Seriously, I think it's fantastic what you're doing. Show us your bracelet.
Yeah, so this is Team Brock. So there's the Batman logo, and then I think this one has teambrock.org, but we have some that say the cure starts now. But I wear it, and then I have a necklace that's Brock and I. Oh. Whenever he was battling, someone dropped off. I still don't know who it was. They didn't send their name, but it was a picture of Brock to wear. I think it was right after he passed away, actually. And I mean, I don't take it off. It's like a safety blanket. So I don't wear any jewelry but this necklace. I don't care what I'm wearing, right?
Well, that little rubber, that's jewelry.
And then, I mean, that's all I got, right? I had worn it in the shower, and I didn't realize I thought it was engraved, but I guess it was a finish on it, and it got ruined. I was so upset. And so, I mean, that night I got on and I ordered me another one because I had no idea. But I realized, so I mean, it's going to be with me forever. There you go. I think that's great. I have them by my heart.
I think that's great. And thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so transparent in your story. That's painful, but it's going to have a happy ending in one sense. But
and we couldn't do it without of our family and support and our Team Brock committee and people showing up. Sure. So I do want to say, like, this 1.4 million, it's not me. It's a whole lot of us. Yeah. I'm just sometimes the face and voice, but I could not do this without everyone who surrounds me.
You bet. I have a real heart for kids, so this one hits me right here.
Right?
Yeah, it's a hard one to research. I told you before we started filming. It's a hard one to research because it's unthinkable to lose a child. So thank you for coming on. I wish you nothing but great success, and I hope that in fact, I know that you're contributing to kicking cancer in the nuts.
And we're going to have a big party when there's a cure. I'm telling you right now, the biggest party you've ever seen.
I'm in. I've been in training for that all my life, right?
Okay, good.
So I'm in. Well, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
That is our show today. So thank you for tuning in. Next, on May 1st, you'll meet Victoria Romanova. Her daughter, Evangelina, was diagnosed with leukemia at 2 years old, and you're going to hear about the battle that they had, and it's a moving story as well. But thank you for being here with us. I do this for you. I have no ego or any motive in it other than just to share stories of encouragement, strength, and hope, so that if you see yourself in her story or any of the stories, you say, if they did it, I can do it too. So again, thank you for being here. I'll be back tomorrow with another 1-minute inspirational thought, and until then, everyone, be well.